Ever wondered who history's very first serial killer was and what could have possibly driven someone to kill repeatedly in an era where the concept of a serial killer didn't even exist? It is almost impossible to pinpoint the absolute first in history. But if we rewind about 100 years to 1918, we stumble upon the chilling case of Bun Pong, one of Thailand's earliest known serial killers and the last person in the country to be publicly beheaded. This horrifying story unfolded on a calm January afternoon in Nonthaburi province when a group of fishermen near the Chao Phraya River spotted a strange iron chest floating near a temple. Hoping for treasure, they eagerly pulled it out and pried it open, only to find a nightmare within: the body of a woman cut into 8 pieces, her limbs bound with rope, and her internal organs spilling out. The victim, later identified as a woman named Prick, had been wrapped in a mosquito net and packed into the chest with bricks or wooden blocks intended to ensure it sank to the river's bottom. With no initial leads, the investigation seemed stalled until a rickshaw driver came forward with a shocking revelation. He had been instructed to dump the iron chest by Bun Pong himself. This single statement provided the first real break for investigators and raised a chilling question. Who was this man, and what led him to commit such a brutal act of violence? Born in 1890 in the remote village of Taotan, located in what is now the Nakhon Phanom province, Bun Pong was a man of mixed heritage, with a Chinese father and a Lao mother. His life took a tragic turn at the age of 5 when both of his parents passed away, leading him to be raised by an elderly couple in Bangkok who treated him as their own grandson. Despite growing up in a household filled with love and care, Bun Pong developed a reputation for being lazy and refused to help his grandparents with any manual labor. As he entered his teenage years, his striking good looks and natural charm made him a figure of fascination, particularly among women who would often swoon at his presence. However, beneath this attractive exterior, a darker interest was brewing as he became deeply obsessed with the world of black magic. He spent his days sneaking out to learn about love spells, charms, and forbidden potions, eventually finding an old mentor near a temple to teach him the secrets of the dark arts. This obsession eventually terrified his grandparents, who kicked him out of their home after witnessing him mumbling strange incantations to himself. With nowhere else to go, he moved to downtown Bangkok and began selling his magical services to the public, eventually becoming an ordained monk at a local temple. While he initially drew large crowds with his handsome appearance and soft-spoken blessings, he soon began mixing his dark rituals with his religious role. He lured in wealthy women with promises of mending their broken hearts through potions, but secretly engaged in forbidden sexual acts that violated his monastic vows. When his deceit and adultery were finally discovered, he was expelled from the temple, only to charm his way into another prestigious monastery by promising to reform his ways. Instead of changing, he grew even bolder, running an illegal casino within the monk's residence and continuing his dark trade for 9 years, protected by his wealthy connections and his reputation for powerful spells. The chilling transformation of Bun Pang from a respected monk into a cold-blooded predator began with a calculated hunger for wealth that outweighed any religious devotion. While still serving at the Wat Suthat temple, his first confirmed victim was a local jeweler named Nai Liam, who had made the fatal mistake of trusting the monk with his business. Bun Pong, alongside a group of loyal disciples he had manipulated, lured the jeweler into a trap to steal his valuable collection. After the murder, they dismembered the body and packed the remains into a heavy iron chest, which they transported 6 kilometers away to be dumped into the river. This method became Bun Pang's signature, a gruesome ritual that combined his obsession with iron containers and his need to dispose of those who stood in his way. Despite the discovery of the chest in 1917, the public was so blinded by his spiritual status that no one dared to suspect a monk could be capable of such butchery. Emboldened by this lack of suspicion, Bun Pang's predatory behavior escalated as he began targeting vulnerable women who came to him seeking spiritual help or love potions. One such woman was Prick, a 20-year-old from a wealthy family who was trapped in an unhappy marriage. She turned to Bun Pong for a magical solution to her domestic problems, but instead she found herself caught in his web of manipulation. Their relationship soon turned physical, and when Prick became pregnant, she pleaded with him to take responsibility and leave the monkhood to start a life with her. To Bun Pang, she was no longer a source of income, but a threat to his reputation and his plans to marry into another wealthy family. On a dark night in early 1918, he invited her to a private meeting, where he brutally strangled her with his bare hands. Following his established pattern, he carved her body into 8 pieces, wrapped her in a mosquito net, and sealed her inside the iron chest that would eventually lead to his downfall. It is whispered that Prick was not his only female victim. During his arrest, witnesses claimed to have seen 7 identical iron chests in his living quarters, suggesting a much larger, hidden trail of blood that the authorities were never fully able to uncover. The investigation into the disappearance of Prick and the discovery of the horrific iron chest quickly centered on Bun Pang after a crucial witness came forward. A rickshaw driver, haunted by the heavy load he had helped transport, led the police directly to the monk's doorstep. When authorities raided Bun Pang's quarters, they were met with a scene that contradicted his holy exterior. Instead of sacred texts and meditation mats, they found evidence of a life fueled by greed and dark rituals. Among his possessions was a letter from Prick's mother, pleading for her daughter's return, which Bun Pang had coldly ignored. The most damning evidence, however, was the discovery of several more iron chests, identical to the one found in the river, hidden within his room. Under intense interrogation, Bun Pang's composed mask finally shattered. While he initially denied any involvement, the weight of the evidence and the confession of one of his young disciples, who had assisted in moving the bodies, forced him to admit to the murders of both the jeweler Nai Liam and the young woman Prick. He detailed how he had used his spiritual influence to lure them into a false sense of security before striking. News of the serial killer monk spread like wildfire across Thailand, sparking a mixture of fury and disbelief among the public who had once bowed to him in reverence. Even while in custody, Bun Pang remained an enigma, showing no remorse for his victims and instead boasting about the spiritual protections he had gained through his dark practices. He was moved to a high-security prison to await trial, as the government realized they were dealing with a monster whose crimes were so unprecedented that they would lead to the country's final public execution. The final day for Bun Pang arrived on August 19, 1919. the date set for his execution. As a massive crowd gathered to witness the end of the man who had terrified the nation, the atmosphere was thick with a mixture of fear and curiosity. When the executioner swung his heavy blade at Bun Pong's neck, a strange thing happened. The sword reportedly bounced off his skin as if striking solid iron, leaving not even a scratch. The executioner realized that Bun Pong was using his black magic and chanting silent protective mantras to shield his body. It wasn't until the executioner commanded him to remove his spiritual protection that Bun Pang finally spat out a small dark Buddha amulet from his mouth. With the charm gone, the second strike of the blade finally ended his life. Yet witnesses claim that even after his head was severed, his lips continued to move as if finishing a final silent prayer. In the years following his death, the terror did not fade. Instead, it evolved into folklore. People began to report sightings of a figure in saffron robes near the river and the temple grounds, leading locals to eventually build a shrine in his name to appease his restless spirit. Over time, some even began to pray to his image for protection, believing that a man who could stop an executioner's blade possessed great power. His story has since been immortalized in films like The Black Coffin, serving as a permanent reminder of how someone in a position of spiritual trust was able to carry out such crimes for so long. While only 2 victims were ever officially named, the 7 iron chests seen in his room suggest a much larger hidden trail of blood that the world may never fully know. The chilling story of Bun Pong serves as a haunting reminder that human nature is not always what it appears to be. Often, the darkest intentions are hidden behind the most sacred robes and the most charming faces. This case teaches us the danger of blind faith and the importance of looking beyond outward appearances. It warns us to remain vigilant and to judge a person by their character rather than their status or spiritual claims. In the end, the greatest monsters are often those who exploit our trust, proving that true evil can hide in plain sight, even in the heart of a temple.